Welcome to Let's Talk Chiropractic. I'm your host, Liz Tolan. I'm joined by Dr. Stacy Sando, Dr. John Dagenhart. We have a special guest here today, Mr. Mark Schorr. How are you, Mark?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on Let's Talk Chiropractic.
You're very welcome.
Well, Mark, I guess we'll start off by just asking you, how long have you been seeking chiropractic care?
I would say since my college days.
Since your college days?
Yeah, I had a sublux vertebrate when I was at Penn State, and a chiropractor out in State College took care of that. And then my mom had gone for years to Dr. Schatz, who's now deceased, and I would see him once in a while when I had a problem, but she's been regularly going to chiropractic as long as I can remember.
So you've grown up with chiropractic
Pretty
care.
much, yeah.
That's stunning. Well, when we come back after the break, we hear you have a very fascinating story to share with us, and we're looking forward to hearing it.
Okay.
All right. You're watching Let's Talk Chiropractic, only on WYLN. Stay with us. We're back right after the break. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic, and we're here today with Mr. Mark Schorr. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Now you were telling us before the break that you've had a history of having chiropractic care, and in your family have been great believers of chiropractic care. And during the break, you were telling us a little bit about your athletic background. Would you like to share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. I started out in junior high school as a competition table tennis player, and we played in the national team championships that invites teams from Canada as well. Wow. I was on the Pennsylvania junior team, and there were two teams, the number 1 and number 2 team. And our number 1 team won the whole national title, and we ended up coming in 3rd and defeating the top Canadian team when we got to the final round robin.
Wow.
And I did that all through junior high and high school, and then when I got to Penn State, I did it as well. And then I've taken off about 20-some years, and just got back to it about 6 years ago again at a high level of competition until I started having problems with my knees. And that sort of put the hold on things for a while.
Tell us a little bit about those problems, when the problems first started surfacing, and when you realized that you had something that you had to take care of.
I would say the first time is when my knees were swollen up like balloons. I was at a table tennis tournament in Allentown, and my partner in doubles actually had to help lift me up off the chair so we could play our doubles match. And
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. And so that was the first instance?
That was the first sign. And at that time I had gone to a different family doctor, and he had diagnosed me with gout. So he put me on allopurinol, and it seemed to help, but the swelling was still there. And then I guess I had changed family doctors then and started going to Dr. Stacy. And she noticed, especially in my hands and wrists, the swelling. And she said, it looks like you have rheumatoid arthritis. And my family doctor took blood tests over a period of about 2 years, and nothing would ever show up on the blood tests. And it was frustrating Dr. Stacy more and more because she knew she was right, and I pretty much thought she was right because I was doing a lot of research online. And finally, after I had my right knee and my left knee both replaced last year by Dr. Favello, when he did the surgeries and got inside there after the surgery in the hospital, he said to me that there's definitely something more going on inside your knees than just gout. He said to me, it looks like you have some type of inflammatory arthritis.
How about it?
So finally, last fall, the blood test came back that I did have rheumatoid arthritis. And it attacked my knees, I'd say, in about 3 years, made them that they were just horrible. And it attacked my right hip so quickly, I had to stop physical therapy for my right knee. And I was pretty much housebound until Valentine's Day this year when I had my right hip replaced by Dr. Favello.
So you've had 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement.
Yes.
That's pretty extensive surgery. Now, Dr. Stacy, and hats off to you for some really good detective work there and being able to diagnose Mark's problem. What were some of the first indicators that had you thinking that this is not gout, this is not something
Mark had
simple?
been coming to me, I think, for about 2 years prior to that major episode that he had come in with. And, you know, regular maintenance type of care. He believed in maintenance care, and doing the table tennis competitions, he wanted to keep his body the best it could be. And he had come back and said, you know, both of his knees were very swollen. And we looked at them and, you know, I told him to ice some stretches. We did a laser treatment, which we talk about on the show sometimes. And it seemed to help a little bit. They were pretty convinced it was gout, so they did the allopurinol, and it seemed to help. But then after, you know, I think from a chiropractic perspective, and I talked to Mark about this too a couple times, and I know Dr. John feels the same way, we see a patient every month, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on subluxation and our treatment protocol at that time. And so I'm seeing his ups and downs of this inflammation rate.
Getting to know him and see this.
Absolutely, and I'm like, Mark, this isn't you. You don't. His adjustments were changing. Things, his listings, his spinal listings that he normally had. His body, even when you would feel the joints in his back, seemed inflamed. I'm like, there's something wrong. I said, I think you have rheumatoid arthritis. I can't diagnose it. We need to send you to the doctor for the blood work. And he did. He was great. You know, he called the doctor. Doctor did the blood work. No, it's not rheumatoid arthritis. He'd come in. His wrist would be swollen again so bad. I'm like, this is rheumatoid, you know. So we worked with the best with what we could and kept sending him back, you know, getting the blood work. And then finally, when they came up with it, I think he was almost even a little bit relieved in the fact that, okay, thank you. Now we can start treating.
At least once you know what it is, then you can start dealing with it. Until you know what it is, and you can't deal.
It's frustrating.
I'm sure, and a painful mystery at that. That's a very tough thing to deal with. I'm sure, especially with someone like yourself who's been so active, and who's a little bit competitive and likes to stay out there. So I guess when you did find out that it was the rheumatoid arthritis, there was a bit of relief. And then what happened? What was the next step?
You know, I think he was going through the replacements with the knees, and his mom used to come, and she comes still now again, but his neighbor was coming as well, so she would keep me kind of, you know, in tune to what was going on. Oh, Mark's getting this done. They had to put off a surgery or two, I know. And so it was nice to have that communication back and forth. But after the hip replacement, you know, she had come in and said, how long till he can come in? I said, as long as he's comfortable, you know, I'm good with adjusting him. That's absolutely fine.
And you were anxious to get back to chiropractic care?
I was very anxious to get back because I would say from October through February, I might have left the house 5 times. And that was just for the most necessary doctor's appointments, and with my surgeon was scheduling the hip replacement. And I wanted to get back to Dr. Stacy's. I'd keep calling and canceling and saying I have to just put it on hold. And I couldn't get off my front porch to get down because my hip was so bad. Dr. Favello couldn't understand how I was still able to walk on it until I had the surgery in February. That's how quickly the rheumatoid attacked the hip.
Wow, wow. So then you went and you had the surgery on the hip, and then I guess there was some convalescing before you could work with him. About how long did it take after the hip surgery until you could actually come back into the office?
After the actual hip surgery, I think it was about 3 or 4 months.
It was about 3 months.
About 3 months, and I bet you were missing it.
I definitely was. I missed all the benefits. I know going into the hip surgery, Dr. Favello had told me that my one leg was shorter than the other. So I was compensating right there with that. So I couldn't wait for Dr. Stacy to straighten out my spine and get me walking better, because I could notice that the way I was walking, it felt like a peg leg.
So when you're used to getting chiropractic care, you really notice it when you're not getting it. And when we come back after the break, we want to talk to Dr. Stacy and find out how your chiropractic care changed after his surgery. You're watching Let's Talk Chiropractic, only on WILN. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic. We're talking to Mark Schorr, and you are telling us all about your treatment from Dr. Stacy, and you've had some pretty intensive surgeries to try to fix you up as a result of your rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
Difficult thing to deal with. Feeling better now.
Much.
Took about 3-4 months, we said before the break, before you could resume your chiropractic care. Dr. Stacy, how did Mark had been a patient of yours for a very long time, a whole family affair actually. But in Mark's case, how did your approach to him change after his surgeries?
We had to scale down the type of adjustments we did. Mark was always very physical and active, so he was okay to get more of an aggressive type of adjustment, diversified we call it, where we could twist his neck and use as much pressure as we would need to get the bones to move. But now, with the changing of the rheumatoid arthritis and the surgeries, we did have to scale back to more of our gentler approach. As Dr. John always talks about on the show.
Yeah, and speaking of what Dr. John always talks about on the show and in the office, I have to bring you in on this discussion, Dr. John, because he said something I thought of you immediately. The one leg was shorter than the other. Now, for people who haven't maybe seen the show or don't know what that would mean right away, intuitively, I'm knowing, after knowing you and even having my own adjustments, what does that mean when that leg is shorter than the other?
There's so many patients are watching the show thinking about rheumatoid arthritis, but Mark's what he's saying is that when his sacroiliac joints misalign, it makes one leg shorter. Then it aggravates all the inflammation of his joints. So our adjustments won't cure the arthritis, but by her getting him leveled, all the, the spine, the shoulders, the knees, everything starts to have equal weight bearing. So 62% of people watching the show have unequal leg length, according to research. And our dream is to get Mark's message out to say, if you're watching the show, get your spine checked, make sure your legs are leveled, so then the whole system it just performs at a higher level.
And Dr. John, that leveling of that leg, explain to our viewers who may not be familiar. I'm familiar because I've had my adjustments done, but when that leg is adjusted, you don't even feel it when that adjustment's taking place. Can you explain to our viewers, in case they haven't heard before, how that works?
A lot of chiropractors, we call it cookie cutter. They use the same technique for every patient. Crack both sides of Mark's hips, crack both sides of his neck. It's beautiful listening to the show myself tonight, to where his system, same patient, but a different system. So she said, let's get more gentle. So there's a Thompson table we call, where there's a drop piece, where as that piece drops, the pelvis realigns. Because so many patients will say, I didn't hear any cracking, there was no twisting or crunching sound. That's the phobia that we're trying to overcome with this show. So you don't have to have your neck cracked or your back cracked. She used the more gentle style, he's still got good results. So
Did it hurt?
Good way to do it.
Not at all.
Not at all. Even after having surgery, even with the rheumatoid arthritis, even with everything else that's going on, still a gentle approach?
Oh, totally. The only problem I had at first, until I was able to stretch my legs out fully, she would have to prop them up a little because I couldn't straighten them out all the way.
Laying face down on the table, the knees would never straighten out, so I'd have to help him out there and put the little ballast under there to lift them up for him. But yeah, he came a long way actually. When he came back, his shoulders were even being, he lost the range of motion, couldn't move his arms up above his head, even to get them to here, I mean, he couldn't do that. So between a lot of upper body work and myofascial release and then giving him specific stretches, he was able to get some more range of motion out of them.
And now you're still continuing to seek chiropractic care?
Oh, yes.
Think you always will?
Definitely.
Definitely. And how about some of your physical activities? How has that changed for you now?
Well, excuse me. I had been off from my weight training out at the wellness center for quite a while in between the surgeries and everything. But I've been given clearance to go back to the wellness center now. So I'm looking forward to that.
Sure.
Using the different pieces of equipment for the upper body and also for my legs, the weightlifting for my legs, the treadmill, the elliptical machine, the step machine. And I've also been given the okay to get back to table tennis, so I'm going to do it slowly.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
I probably won't be able to move quite as fast, but with the style of play that I utilize, it's not really necessary. So I can stay up close to the table and block against my opponent and let them run around and run them down.
And I'll bet your teammates are going to be glad to have you back as well.
Yeah, I hear from them all on Facebook all the time and emails, so yeah.
What would you have to say to them about chiropractic care?
You can't believe the results of chiropractic. It's just unbelievable.
What do you think, Dr. Stacy?
I think it's great.
And Dr. John, with the rheumatoid arthritis now, this is something that really won't resolve itself. This is something that is, correct me, or maybe you could explain it to us a little bit. With rheumatoid arthritis, does it go away?
No.
It doesn't go away.
So Mark's going to have to deal, everything helps is proper mental attitude. He seems like a great guy. You know, he's not here like, God, woe is me. Why'd you do this to me?
He sounds like he's ready to go back out there and embrace